You know, it's not every day that a single city election sends shockwaves across the entire globe. But that's exactly what happened with Zohran Mamdani's victory. Becoming New York City's first Muslim mayor wasn't just a local news story. No way! It was this huge moment that triggered an incredible mix of pride, celebration, and, on the other side, some really intense outrage. So let's break down the anatomy of that reaction.
And look, right out of the gate, Mamdani himself set the tone with these words. I am Muslim, I am a democratic socialist, and I refuse to apologize for any of this. This wasn't just a simple statement, you know? It was this defiant declaration of who he is, right in the face of all this national pressure. He basically took the labels his opponents were trying to use against him and just owned them. It really signaled a totally new kind of leadership for the city.
Okay, so let's start with the victory itself. And we're not just talking about another win here. His supporters, and a lot of political analysts, they immediately called it a watershed moment, like a political earthquake, and the tremors were felt way, way beyond New York.
And the force behind this win? I mean, it was just staggering. This victory was powered by a level of civic engagement, a voter turnout, that the city hadn't seen in half a century. So for his supporters, this wasn't just a narrow win. It was a clear, undeniable mandate for change coming from this massive, energized group of people.
So what was that first ripple effect? Where did it hit first? Well, it was this really personal, really emotional reaction that swelled up inside New York's Muslim and South Asian communities. For so many, this felt like way more than just politics.
And this simple phrase, "he's one of us," you just heard it everywhere. It really captures that deep sense of representation, of pride. I mean, think about it. For a community that's faced decades of suspicion and scrutiny, especially since 9/11, seeing someone who looks like us, sounds like us, leading the biggest city in the country, well, that was a huge cathartic moment.
And Mamdani, he totally understood this feeling. In his victory speech, he used the Arabic phrase, Ana minkum wa ilaykum, which translates to, I am of you and for you. This was just a brilliant move. Instead of trying to downplay his identity, he used it as a bridge, connecting directly with the very communities he was promising to represent.
But here's a really crucial nuance that his supporters kept pointing out. While his identity was, of course, historic and deeply meaningful, for many it was seen as the bonus. The real core driver, the thing that actually got people out to the polls, was his platform. His campaign was just laser-focused on the economic needs of working people. Things like universal childcare, which would be an absolute game-changer for working parents. Rent freezes to fight back against the city's insane housing costs, and making buses free to lighten the load on commuters. See, these weren't some abstract ideas. They were direct solutions to the daily struggles that working-class and immigrant families face. And that energy was absolutely infectious. His victory party was described as just jubilant, totally reflecting the spirit of this huge grassroots movement. We're talking over 100,000 volunteers, a campaign powered by small-dollar donations. This was a clear win for a different kind of politics, one that's built on community organizing, not big money.
But you know, for every massive celebration, there's always a counterwave, right? So as progressives were celebrating, this fierce and immediate wave of outrage and opposition started to build, mostly coming from conservative and MAGA circles.
And the backlash, it was fast and it was fierce. The attacks came from all sides. National critics quickly started throwing around labels designed to paint his victory not just as a political loss, but as this existential threat to the city. Words like communist, extremist, and radical socialist started to dominate the narrative from the other side, just showing how polarized the moment was.
And, you know, the criticism didn't just stay political for long. It often veered into overtly anti-Muslim and anti-immigrant territory. According to our sources, social media was filled with comments calling for the deportation of a U.S. citizen, which really highlights how the political opposition was often tangled up with racist and xenophobic feelings.
And then, you get this. The reaction from Mamdani's most famous opponent, President Trump, who had attacked him over and over during the campaign, posted this cryptic, kind of ominous message, just 4 words. But with those 4 words, he elevated a local election into something with huge national consequences.
So where does this all lead? What's the final, biggest ripple from this victory? It's the way it transformed from a local New York story into a global one. This wasn't just about New York City anymore. It became a symbol that resonated all around the world, sparking this massive international conversation.
And it really is a story of a world divided. On one side, you've got people like London's first Muslim mayor, Sadiq Khan, celebrating the choice of hope over fear.
You've got these expressions of pride coming from Uganda, where Mamdani was born. But on the other side, back home, you have this continued alarm from domestic critics, painting his victory as the downfall of a great American city.
So when you strip away all the noise, the identity, the controversy, what's the big takeaway here? Well, Mamdani's win is being seen as a potential blueprint. It's kind of like proof that an unapologetically progressive, anti-establishment candidate can actually win one of the most powerful political jobs in the world. Not by getting into culture wars, but by focusing squarely on the economic struggles of everyday people.
Which really leaves us with one last question to think about. When one city's vote for its mayor can stir up such powerful hope and such intense fear all across the planet, what does that really tell us about the deep divisions, but also maybe the shared hopes, of the world we're all living in today?